Hello, good morning, and welcome. It's Friday, the 27th of March, 2020, and we're back with, I think, episode 145, but as you'll see in a moment, that doesn't really matter because I'm not really doing a typical episode today. I decided it was time that I did an episode about everything happening in the world with respect to COVID-19, and frankly, with a particular focus on everything happening here in my home country of the USA, where things are decidedly not so good. So I had a bit of a thought the other day, and I ended up sort of being inspired to write a pretty lengthy thing. I've shared it on Facebook, and many of my friends rather liked it, so I'm thinking to actually go ahead and cross-post it over on Medium. You can check it out there if it goes live. But for now, I just thought, why don't I just read it to all of you? And you can either totally tune out and ignore this if you like, or give it a listen. It's a bit of a different sort of a thing for me to think, to write, to say, to speak, certainly. Right, why don't I just dive in, and here we go. So I've had a rather long thought. It's a remarkably, well, for me anyway, historically patriotic thought, as you'll see, but one with global hope and inspiration during this utterly unimaginable time in human history. I've posted a lot of miserable, depressing metrics about COVID lately, and though I obviously sincerely hope I'm wrong, I suspect we could be in this mess for at least the next 6 to 12 months. I've even got bets with others who are counting on just 2 to 4 months, and this could very well likely be 18 months or longer. And that's not even counting the secondary effects that'll persist for years to come, and indeed, even generations. On a positive note, however, this isn't to say that I'm being negative, or that my wife and I are freaking out. Yes, of course, we're deeply concerned, and yes, there's an ever-present shadow lurking over us every day as we imagine where things are headed on our little pale blue dot of a planet, and the unthinkable number of people mathematically certain to die from this vicious virus. On more than one occasion, these thoughts have even moved us to tears the last few weeks. It's unthinkable what's happening, horrific. Surely a bug in the simulation somewhere, a glitch in the matrix. Despite all this, though, and as I've said several times, I think we're going to see quite a few shimmering silver linings as we push our way through this global historic catastrophe, the most likely of which is unity and social mobilization against a common foe, this time at a global scale never seen before in human history. But I'd like to focus on our own country for just a moment, the US of A. If only because, well, weirdly, I've never really been labeled a hardcore patriot, whatever that means. Never mind my unquestionable love and respect for our country, especially reinforced in recent years as I've immersed myself more in her remarkable history. I've never owned a huge American flag billowing in the wind, and certainly don't have any red, white, and blue boxer shorts like at least one of my friends, nor do I own a gun, despite dear friends' advice to the contrary. Nevertheless, and despite America's undeniable fumbles, faults, and failures over the years, I will steadfastly maintain that there is no other country in Earth's history that has grown as fast, or by many, but decidedly not all metrics, as great in just 243 years. And the main reason for America's very existence is even more impressive than that she exists in the first place. That when America mobilizes the full might of her citizens, leverages her financial strength, and yes, flexes her military muscle, for the greater good of the people, she cannot fail. We first proved this to ourselves, and indeed to the world, when we were victorious against all odds during the Revolutionary War. We managed to hold ourselves together just barely by the tattered sinews of our shattered society after our horrific Civil War. We rose from relative nothingness to engage in World War I and, crucially, World War II, rising to the challenge by building the largest force of aircraft and seagoing vessels the world had ever seen practically overnight. And the people that rose to that challenge? All of us. The entire population came together towards a common goal, put aside their insignificant wants, wishes, and desires, didn't scoff at 24/7 work weeks to build airplanes, ships, and ammo, and we certainly didn't bitch and complain that Netflix wasn't streaming in 4K anymore, or that we couldn't play tennis, something of which I'm admittedly guilty, or that we couldn't drive to our favorite parks and open preserves, also guilty. My dad's parents helped the war efforts. If I'm not mistaken, my grandfather designed bombers' gunner turrets, and my grandmother helped to assemble them. My dad says he thinks they were recruited to work in the same factory. I'm sure all of you with parents in their 80s have heard similar stories about your grandparents. Meanwhile, a friend of ours posted a great video in which Piers Morgan, of all people, rightfully scolded his audience that the only thing we have to do is stay home and watch television. We don't have to go to war. We don't have to fight on the front lines, work day and night in factories, dodge bullets and bombs. All we have to do is, well, STF home. And it's a really great point, and something we all need to think about to keep this in perspective. We're mercifully not in a global nuclear war. We're not about to be snuffed out by a meteor. Thing is, though, this does require us to come together once again, all 320 million of us, and indeed, globally, all 7.5 billion of us. But this time, what we're facing is a normal biological thing, a fragment of Mother Nature herself. And all we need to do is stay home, and yes, Netflix and chill. That's it. Because meanwhile, of course, the real soldiers of this war, our doctors and medical professionals, they'll be fighting this battle for us, all alone. And there's nothing we can do to help except just, well, stay home. But whether it's coming together for war, or in this case, coming together just to stay home and avoid each other for a few months, coming together and mobilizing as a nation is precisely what we Americans have done best. And it's why we're here in the first place. We may not do it perfectly. We may not do it fast enough. But we will get it done eventually. And we must do it now, along with every other country on Earth. So let us be sure that history never forgets the year 2020. The year the world stopped, Earth closed, and humanity came together. Thanks so much for listening. Stay home, stay safe, keep well, and have a wonderful weekend. I'll see you back here next week. Bye-bye.